much for joining us for another segment of Page to Screen's Tennessee Stars series, where we talk about screenwriting and independent filmmaking in the great state of Tennessee. So joining us today is a Tennessee star, MK Kopp. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And she is the writer, director, producer of a short film that was in the Nashville Film Festival called Chipper. Pitch Chipper to me, please.
So Chipper is a horror comedy, dark comedy, about a vigilante sorority queen who is seeking revenge on the man who murdered her mother in front of her eyes many years ago.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fun. It's a comedy. It is a comedy.
Comedy,
yes,
dark.
It is.
It's my favorite.
Murder.
It's my favorite genre.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the teaser for it. Awesome.
The latest victim in what police are calling a serial killing spree was found early this morning in his home in Franklin County. This now marks the third homicide in just 2 months. The motive for these murders remains under investigation.
Yes, that's awesome. I think I saw you up there.
Yes,
and you're
I'm
also
also
acting in it.
Yes,
okay.
that is
wow. This is a lot. I love it.
It is a lot.
Okay, so let's start with, where did you get the idea for Chipper?
Yeah, so Chipper originally came from my love for the movies Legally Blonde and American Psycho.
Okay.
And I feel like the two films, the fact that I identify with both of them, very much shows the duality of my personality. By identify with American Psycho, I don't mean I identify as a psycho, but like kind of. You know, sometimes she's crazy. But yeah, so I originally was just like, wouldn't it be so fun to combine the character of Elle Woods and the character of Patrick Bateman? Because Elle Woods has this sorority, which is this, you know, very hyper-feminine cohort of people, like-minded, who all exist and talk the same way and dress the same way, and they're all right in that world. And Patrick Bateman has this hyper-masculine group at his office that they're just like men, and they're comparing business cards, and it's like men, right? And so I was like, wouldn't it be fun to see that like psycho serial killer person, but in this very hyper-feminine environment? And I'm a scaredy cat, but I love horror movies.
Yeah.
So really what gets me in horror is when there's comedy, when it's a little campy.
Yeah.
You know, I love the early 2000s, 90s movies,
Yeah.
Heathers, Jawbreaker.
Yes.
They're just like delicious bubblegum eye candy,
Yeah.
but they're really dark and twisted. So I was like, let me write something that I would want to watch with my besties at a sleepover that also is like very empowering about female rage.
I love it.
And that's kind of how we got to where we are.
Yeah. Nice. That's a journey.
Yeah.
I love it. So from the idea to writing it, getting it on the screen, that's a big, long process. How long about did that take?
So Chipper, the short film that's in the festival, is actually based on a feature film script that I have. And the short is serving as a proof of concept for the feature, trying to get the feature made. And so first what I did was wrote the feature script. It was my first time writing a feature film script. So it took me a while. It took me about 6 months to get a really solid, I would say, third draft to where I was like, oh, I've broken the story. I've cracked the code. This is definitely, these are my main characters. This is my antagonist. This is the journey this character is going to go on, this anti-hero. And so that took me about 6 months. And then I realized I was, speaking to my manager, and she was like, let's just get a short out of it, right? Let's like get that going. This was my directorial debut. Had never directed anything before. So it was pretty quick once I had the script. I would say about a month to really figure out which pieces of the script I wanted to have in the short. And then about 2 months later, we're shooting it because I was just so eager and hungry to do it. And so we shot it last
early
fall.
on did you know that you were going to play the lead, the protagonist?
Oh, I held auditions for all of the roles, including Caroline, the lead. And then I was speaking with my manager, and she was like, why are you not playing that character? I was like, oh, because it's my first time directing. I'm nervous. And she was like, no. What we're trying to do
you don't
is
get to
get
do that.
you to tell this story. What are you talking about? You know, like, this story, this character. You got this.
Okay.
And so I did
manager,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. She was like, you have to, what are you talking about? Why are you scared? Like, you can do this.
So let's talk about your process of writing. You said 6 months maybe is what you spent.
feature.
So how did you start? Was it note cards, outlines, just brainstorm? Because we have a lot of members who are screenwriters and we're trying to kind of dig into that side of
Yeah,
things.
so for this one, I definitely read every book I could get my hands on. I didn't go to film school. I was studying acting mostly in school. I went to Sarah Lawrence. You don't have a major, so I was studying a bunch of stuff. And so at first I was like, I need to educate myself on how to actually do this, how to hit the story beats. And then found Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, which I know is, everybody's favorite. And that's where I got started. And then honestly, really though, because I had just so many visions of scenes in my head, and so it was just a lot of just brainstorming.
Where does
stuff.
that go?
Really, where does that go? There were a lot of iterations of what this could be.
And remind me, Save the Cat does have a fairly organized, I don't want to call it an outline, but it is like note cards and
There's
so-
a whole beat by beat.
That's
He's got
right.
a whole beat sheet.
That's right,
So
there it
he's
is,
like,
yeah.
by page 5, you should be stating the theme. By
this.
page 30, you're in your beat
So did you
story.
try to do that? I mean, I know you're brainstorming too.
It was, terrible and very unsuccessful at first because I was really forcing it. I was like, okay, I'm page 5. Murder is okay for women to, like really trying to get my thesis out there, and it just didn't make any sense for the story.
Sure.
But it was really helpful to kind of figure out the genre that this fit in, and then the tropes of that, and then did a lot of the fun research of watching every movie I could get my hands on that I felt was tonally in the world of Chipper.
Yeah.
And so it was just a lot of, I love that, I love this. It was just a lot of brainstorming at first, trial and error of the actual structure. And then once I had enough scenes written out and dialogue really comes first to me, then I was able to Frankenstein it.
So you said you went to Sarah Lawrence, you studied everything, but acting some.
Acting primarily,
So
theater.
I guess my question is, we're interested in knowing, how did you get into filmmaking?
So I grew up here in Nashville doing a lot of theater, but also acting and, Watkins student films and Vanderbilt student films. So I've always been on film sets growing up, acting. And in school was in a lot of student films, most of them terrible. But that is a great experience of being on set. Being like, that didn't work, got it. Like noted, that didn't feel good to be treated that way on a set,
Right.
no food,
Yeah.
things like that. And so then it wasn't until though 2 years after I graduated college, I was in New York, having a decent amount of success, getting cast in theater productions, but nothing in TV film, because if you don't have representation, nearly impossible to get in a room because those rooms are so, behind closed doors. And so I decided I would just write my own stories.
Okay.
I had some friends who had made shorts, who had written them and then written roles for themselves.
Okay, you'd seen other people do it, kind of.
I had a couple pals who I'd seen do that. They were like, I really want to play a detective. I'm going to write myself a detective role.
Okay.
Easy peasy, right?
Yeah.
It was
Add
not
it to your
easy.
role or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. So I went through a terrible breakup in 2019 and was like, I'm either going to shave my head or start a production company. And my friends and family were like, please don't shave your head. Don't do that. So I started an LLC because that's kind of, my dad's an entrepreneur. And so I was like, and so I've just very much jumped into it, made 2 shorts, and then Chipper is now my third.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any war stories from filming Chipper the short that you can share?
Yeah, I would say, we shot it in a day and a half, which was only because of budgetary, restrictions. And then, of course, we went over on the first half day. So then I was like, well, now I'm paying everybody a full day rate, so I should have used the whole day. So that was my producer brain kind of shut off because I was so focused on pre-pro as a director.
Yeah.
So that wasn't good. But honestly, the biggest thing was the night before we were supposed to start shooting, the insurance company fell through. It was like a holiday weekend or something, and so nobody was responding to me. And they were like, oh yeah, we don't have the insurance, we don't have the right COI. So the rental house said, we cannot give you the equipment without the COI.
Without that.
And I've got the cast who's traveled in from all over in my living room doing blocking. And I go out back and I'm like on the grass, heaving, crying. My fiance is like, we can do this, we got this. And he's like calling them, and it worked out.
It worked out.
And I walked in there a little puffy, but I was like, girls, we're good. Nothing happened.
That's a solid war story.
Yeah, it was a crisis.
Go.
Like, guttural screaming in my backyard. And then was like, everything's fine.
Just
It's all okay.
very much like Chipper.
Exactly, everything's okay.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
Anything else you're writing, working on?
Yeah, I've started my next feature, and this one I really outlined. Detail outline, very detailed treatment.
Still Save the Cat?
Save the Cat, yeah, very much so. And now a lot of other books and podcasts and stuff I've gotten my hands on. Plus, I've now read tons of screenplays, which is also very helpful. And now that I've really got that outlined, I've started actually writing out the scenes, and I'm realizing it is a lot easier to write the scenes if you have the outline.
Well, hello.
So I'm like, okay, people are onto something with the whole note card thing. I was like, I see, this is working. It's less stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that's a good way to do it.
It's a good way to do it, you know?
Yeah.
That's what people say. But yeah, it's great. So I'm working on my next feature, which is an action romantic comedy.
Fun.
Big fun.
Not quite as dark then.
Not quite as dark at all. Very fun, exciting, modern romantic comedy.
Well,
Yeah.
sounds like a nice change.
Yeah.
Do it all. What advice would you give to people who are wanting to write screenplays?
I would definitely say educate yourself as much as you possibly can. There are tons of great books out there. Again, Blake Snyder's Save the Cat is my personal favorite. Very help my brain. But also just reading screenplays. It's been really fun to read screenplays and then watch the films.
It's great, yeah.
You can write a killer script,
Right.
but then if it actually gets made, people are going to change it. There's going to be
yeah.
a million. So that honestly is a great burden off my shoulders, and I think it could be off of anybody else's of write what you got, and then if somebody wants to make it, then you can rework it. But don't try and write for anybody else right now. Really just write for yourself.
Write for yourself.
Yeah.
So where can people go to find out more about your projects or you?
So I would say Instagram is the best.
Okay. Under what name?
Under It's MK Kopp.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from there you can find La Loba Films, and then there's also a separate Instagram for Chipper.
A little bit of wisdom before we say goodbye.
Goodbye. Yes. I had a mentor of mine right when I was out of college, just like knocking on everybody's door, desperate for something. And she told me that I should really focus on networking horizontally rather than vertically. And that was very enlightening to me because you see all of these great powerhouses, you know, the Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph trio, and you're like, how are they doing it? I really want to get in there. And then it's like, well, pause. If you look around, I have the Kiara Goldberg, Lizzie Morgan, Mila Villaplana, like all of my women that I'm working with now, and we are going to be able to go up together. So I think it's, if you want to have that platform, and really have those strong collaborators like these people that I idolize do, then you got to start with your people.
With your own tribe.
With your own
right
tribe,
where
build
you
your
are.
tribe, really find the people who can support you, who are fun to have on set,
Right.
who are pleasant humans,
'Cause you
good
have to have-
humans, because you spend a lot of time
A lot of
together.
time. A lot of stress.
A lot of stress. Insurance falls through.
It does.
Crisis. So just very much like focusing horizontally rather than vertically.
That is some solid advice,
Yeah.
MK. Thank you. Thanks for visiting with us, and you are welcome back anytime, especially if any of your other projects come through. We'd love to hear about that. I am Iris Johnston. Thanks for watching Page to Screen. Keep on writing and keep on learning. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joining us today is a Tennessee star, J. Curtis Miller, who wrote, directed, produced the movie MK Ultraviolence. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on getting your film into the Nashville Film Festival.
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment. Go ahead and pitch it to me.
MK Ultraviolence is a short horror film set in the late 60s. It's about this Vietnam veteran named Hopper who's riddled with PTSD. Homeless, and he's just kind of like living on the streets in an alleyway. And one day he's picked up by this charismatic undercover agent named Reese. And he gives him a bite to eat, promises him that, like, I see you've basically been in the war, you don't look great. And then he just kind of starts, like, promising him, like, if you come with me, I'll repair your mind. But what Hopper doesn't know is, like, what he's going to do with his mind is like piece it back together in a more sinister way.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Not good for Hopper.
Yeah.
Okay, let's watch.
Welcome to Project Bluebird. If you're listening to this tape, then you must have recently gone through a traumatic experience. Your mind has been shattered, and we're here to help pick up the pieces. We want you to lose your state of being, then come back fully into our reality.
A new man.
Still.
You hungry?
Okay.
Cool.
So that's super intense. Okay. Let's start with where did you get the idea for MK Ultraviolence?
So I've always been kind of fascinated with the American history and American culture in the late 60s going into the 70s. I think during that time, American cinema was at its best because a lot of independent filmmakers kind of like had their chance to kind of make these very kind of bold movies that were inspired by like French New Wave and just all sorts of stuff. And during that time, it was just a very turbulent time in American history. You had the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, and along with obviously the assassination of JFK. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot of distrust in American institutions and governments.
Well, now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so basically, like I've just from a broad standpoint, I've always just been fascinated with that, and I've always kind of wanted to play in that world. And I picked up a book called Chaos by Tom O'Neill, and I read that through the pandemic, and that kind of split my brain in two because that was kind of like my introduction more thoroughly into the MK Ultra program.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, well, that's super cool, and I love the filmmaking aspect of the 70s and late 60s, and I thought like, well, maybe I can make something almost like into a slasher using this kind of historical background.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I had to look up MK Ultra because
Yeah.
I didn't know much about it. But there is a historical aspect to it.
Yeah.
And then you kind of took that and created this fictional story based on what you learned. It's very, very, very intense sounding.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you from getting the idea to writing the screenplay and then having it become a movie? And you can talk me through just the beginning of getting the idea.
Sure. So with all that kind of background information just already kind of logged into my brain, I just had I had it almost like instantly when I was just kind of like driving home one day, having I think I was rereading the book at the time, just through Audible. I was like, and it kind of just happened like really quick. And that's when like the inspiration starts. And I immediately had to kind of just like write it down. I wrote the outline first on my phone, and I think I don't really have a process, but that's kind of like how I do it first, because I just want to see if like, boom, 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 can this happen?
Okay.
And I send it to friends, and then if they think it's sick, then I'm going to proceed and kind of like digging even further.
So is this like half a page, just a few sentences? What does it look like?
It's just kind of like bullet points.
Okay.
Like
one full page.
Yeah, just
Maybe.
like iPhone notes.
Okay.
And just kind of like very broad strokes, like kind of maybe describe the character a little bit, but just kind of here's how I'll start, here's how I'll end. And basically just from there, once I kind of get like overall feedback, like, oh, that'd be cool, and then I kind of get the confidence to just pursue it. And the first draft probably took me about a week because up front there's a lot of dialogue, and there wasn't a ton of dialogue for the rest of the short, but I just needed some sort of monologue in a sense, even though it's broken apart, because Hopper doesn't speak throughout the entire short up until the very end, but it's quiet. I don't really want you to hear what he's saying because it's a little disturbing. Like it just gives off like a disturbing vibe to it.
Yeah.
But just to kind of like set this whole thing up, I needed kind of like not like an exposition dump, but just something almost like a play to just get the action forward, and that was pretty difficult.
Right.
But then as I kept going, like I just kind of found my way through this whole story. And then there's like a kind of like a psychedelic sequence that was kind of hard to write, so it was vaguely written.
Welcome. We are about to begin. Settle into your seat or wherever you feel most comfortable. Welcome to Project Bluebird. This program is designed to help better serve your mind and grow your consciousness. If you're listening to this tape, then you must have recently gone through a traumatic experience. Perhaps you have had intense migraines, brain fog, cognitive malfunction, hearing voices, etc. Your mind has been shattered, and we're here to help pick up the pieces. There will be many words spoken throughout the duration of this tape, and I want you to repeat each word after you first hear them. We want you to lose your state of being, then come back fully into our reality, a new man. Please do not pause this tape at any time, as it will break your flow of consciousness. Remember to keep up with the pace, and please do exactly as you are told. But first, close your eyes, sit back, and relax. Sky, grass, dirt, touch, feel, skin, warmth, woman, love, hate, anger, rage, aggression, riot, unrest.
How long do you think that process took from like idea to like find, I now have a script and I'm ready to.
I would say like a readable, okay, we can start from here, probably like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, that's not very long at all.
And then just from there, you're just constantly rewriting because you want to just like
But
touch
where you
on it.
weren't ready to shoot.
Basically, when I had a draft that I was confident to just like, after having feedback from like close screenwriting friends.
Right.
I think I was in a good enough spot by like, let's say I had the idea in May. By like in the middle of June to late June, I was like, okay, I can start piecing this together, assembling a team.
Like pre-production, I'm just going to start thinking, okay.
Yeah.
That is pretty quick. That's great.
Yeah.
How did you come into writing, directing, producing? How did that happen?
I mean, I've always kind of loved film. I think I wanted to act first, just when I was a kid, but then
Okay.
I realized I have kind of stage fright, so I don't really do that
That's not
anymore.
good.
Right? Yeah. But then I realized like, oh, I think I like the whole machine of it more so than just acting. Like I love the cinematography, music, how you can manipulate sound and.
How did you figure that out? Was it?
I think just through, I don't know, when I would watch films, I don't think I was just paying attention to the acting, I was paying attention to how
All
it
of
made
it?
me feel, and that was just every
Yeah.
aspect of it.
So a self-education kind of is what it sounds like, or did you go to school?
I went to school, I
You
went
did.
to Taylor University, which is a liberal arts Christian college, but I would say I learned more so after the fact.
Okay.
Because you learn by doing
By doing it.
And that's how I kind of got into writing, because nobody's going to just show up to your doorstep and say, make this movie. You have to kind of write it yourself,
Right.
especially if you want to direct. So
Right.
that's kind of how I've gotten into writing.
Okay, yeah, it's working out. So let's talk about some of your next projects or where you want to take this project. What are you working on the most right now?
So I do have like a small, short horror film that I will hopefully be shooting in 2 weeks from this weekend. It'll be like a...
Here in Nashville?
Yes. So
fun.
it's Halloween themed. It takes place in Halloween, and we're hoping to do it in one take.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is completely different from MK Ultraviolence, but that's what I want to do. I want to do something, a complete 180, still in the same genre, but just like not so like heavy-handed with the politics and the history.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was just like, it's if you're going to do something historical, you kind of have to get it right as much as you can. And that was
Right.
just in the back of my mind weighing on me. So this is just going to be a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And from writing standpoint, when I made this short and while I was writing it, all through this past year, I've just been like, I'm not really done with this world. So I'm writing the first feature-length script for this short film.
For the MK Ultraviolence too.
Yes,
Okay, so
yeah.
this is, okay, you do want that to become a full feature as well.
Yes, one
Okay.
day.
So what advice would you give to people who are starting out writing, screenwriting or wanting to get into filmmaking?
Mm-hmm.
What would be your best advice you could give them?
I think it sounds cheesy, but just do it.
Okay, that doesn't sound cheesy at all.
I think the more you do, the more you learn, the more you practice at your craft, the more you're going to get better at it, and the more confidence you build. And with any sport, I mean, like Michael Jordan, every day when he was like, like 6 years old, all he was doing during the summer, just like shooting hoops. That's all he did.
Right.
So it's just like, try to write it yourself, get good feedback, and just make your own short and just keep doing it. Even if it doesn't come to your expectations,
Right.
just keep doing it.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right. You should make some bad things, get them out of the
Yeah.
way.
Get it out of the way and then just
Keep going and
figure out what your taste is, figure out your voice. And that's going to take a while, especially
right.
if you're kind of young, like late teens, early 20s. It took me a while.
right.
But
Or even my age.
right. I mean, anybody can
Yeah, no,
start at
it
any
takes a while.
time.
It does.
Yeah.
I can agree more.
Yeah.
So, where could people find out more about you or your projects? The Halloween short you're working on. How can people find this?
You can follow me on Instagram at jcurtismiller.
Okay.
And then I have a website, jcurtismillerfilm.com. I don't update that as much as I should, but Instagram is just where I've been constantly promoting
Putting
this
everything in there.
and
Okay.
updates and just what I'm working on.
Oh, great.
So
Okay. Cool. We'll check that out. Do you have any final words of wisdom? One last little nugget.
try to get over the fear of failing, because failure is what's going to kind of what defines you as a human. Even putting aside your films or your projects,
Right.
just learning from your mistakes and getting better after that, I think is the best thing a filmmaker can do. And
That
just being bold. Don't wait for an opportunity, just make it yourself.
Do it. That is great. Just do it. I think there's a shoe that
Right.
came up with that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for visiting us. There's an
Yeah.
open invitation to come back anytime,
Thank you.
especially if any of these other projects get out there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And I'm Iris Johnston. Thanks for watching Page to Screen. Keep on writing and keep on learning. Yay.